Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, a bustling modern metropolis complete with towering skyscrapers, landscaped parks, high-end shopping malls selling international brands, and tourists visiting from all over the world. But behind this glitzy facade, things are maybe not quite what they seem. Hundreds of thousands of Malaysians are unhappy with the way their country is being run, and they're taking to the streets. They say that the government is racist and corrupt, that it controls the media and elections, and subdues all those in opposition with violent force. I travelled to the nation's capital to investigate the underlying cause of this tension, and to speak face to face with all kinds of Malaysians, in order to make sense of this unique political climate. On May the 5th, 2013, Malaysia's Muslim-controlled Conservative Coalition Party, Barisan Nasional, were re-elected for the 13th time in a row. Despite the more liberal opposition, Pakatan Rakyat, receiving the majority of votes, the first-past-the-post system used in Malaysia meant that the ruling party kept enough seats to remain in power. Allegations of electoral fraud were immediately made by the opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim. Thousands blacked out their Facebook profile pictures in protest, and a series of rallies known as Black 505 began, the first taking place on the 8th of May at a stadium near Kuala Lumpur, attended by an estimated 120,000 people. Whilst I was in Malaysia, the largest Black 505 rally yet was scheduled to meet in Padang Merbok Park in central Kuala Lumpur. I joined the rally at the University of Malaya, which was the meeting point for the youth arm of the opposition party.
Kami turun ke Padang Merbok 622 ini kerana pertama sebab menuntut SPM meletak jabatan kerana terdapat banyak isu-isu yang foto dalam pilihan raya PRU 13 seperti blackout, peti undi lari dan pengundian tu. Kedua, kami menuntut untuk pilihan raya semula untuk kawasan yang didapati blackout ataupun yang ada peti undi masuk ke keluar. Itu satu. Yang ketiga, kami bukan turun untuk gaduh ke apa, kita turun secara aman untuk tuntut hak demokrasi kita. That's all.
Although there was a moderate police presence at the meeting point, the small crowd gathered there showed no signs of violence. A few speeches were made, most notably by student activist Adam Adley, who was arrested in May for speaking out against the election results.
Ini bukan tohmahan, ini bukan fitnah, ini bukan cerita kosong. 55 tahun negara ini ditadbir oleh parti yang sama. Sejak daripada merdeka sampailah ke hari ini tahun 2013 dalam sebuah negara demokrasi macam Malaysia. Walaupun majoriti rakyat telah pun menolak UMNO Barisan Nasional, tapi berkat penipuan pilihan raya, mereka masih lagi pegang tangga kekuasaan.
This is not the first election where these allegations have been made. Indeed, Malaysians have been demanding change for some years now. Bersih, meaning clean or untainted in English, is a civil society movement co-chaired by prominent human rights lawyer and former Bar Council President, Dato Ambiga Srinivasan.
Well, the first rally in 2011, we had about 50,000 people turning out. And this was despite the government declaring us illegal, and basically they came out very strongly against Bersih, and they shut down roads and so on. The second rally, which was on April 28, 2012, we had about 200,000 people. That's our estimate. Many estimated it to be certainly more than 100,000. So that was a big turnout in Kuala Lumpur.
And there weren't any problems on the day?
Oh, there were. In both instances, there was excessive use of the force by the police, particularly in the second one. And in fact, the Human Rights Commission here has actually done a report and found that there was an excessive use of force by the police. A lot of people got beaten out, and there was unnecessary use of force.
How was your involvement in Bersih directly affected you?
Oh, well, it did. I mean, clearly, because certainly in 2011, I received many personal threats. I mean, the government was attacking me, and that was very tough on the family. Certainly tough on me, but I knew we had to stand up to that sort of intimidation. It was really with a view to trying to get us to call it off. So there were those are the negatives, and I've also suffered even this round when I had people outside my house and demonstrating outside my house and saying the most vile things. People saying I should be hung, that I should have my citizenship revoked. That's me personally, but Bersih as well, my committee members as well. They had some. They've had difficult times.
As the rally proceeded, tension was mounting as protesters streamed through the city streets towards the park. I was worried that what happened at the Bersih rallies would happen today, especially seeing as this was meant to be the biggest one yet. However, at its peak, the crowd only reached around 30,000. Most blamed this on the haze of pollution in downtown KL at the time, but human factors also need to be considered. In Malaysia, access to alternative political views is hampered by a lack of media and press freedom. To find out more, I visited one of the country's most popular political news websites, Malaysia Kini.
Malaysia Kini is an independent news organization that was started in 1999 as a result of a news blackout on the newspapers, radio, television. So Pramesh Chandran and Stephen Gunn both journalists, decided to bring journalism online, and they were the pioneers of online news in terms of the online news industry in Malaysia, in Southeast Asia in fact. We have relatively, far more freedom on the internet. There's limited number of websites that are banned, although there have been organized efforts to cripple certain websites that are deemed to be unsupportive of the ruling party, and we have been on the receiving end of these kind of actions many times.
Media ownership seems to be another issue. All of the country's major TV stations, as well as the biggest publisher, are owned by the same company, Media Prima. Although disguised by a series of proxies, this company is strongly linked to the ruling coalition. Anwar Ibrahim discussed this point in an interview with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange.
In the lead up to 2008, an extraordinary year in Malaysian politics, you try and get elected to Parliament. What happens during that year?
We worked very hard. We don't have any access to the media. The entire media was good to support the ruling party. Even today, as leader of the opposition, I don't have even 1 minute of airtime. That's why I decided to and accepted your invitation. Can you imagine, with not a minute of airtime, we could still win 5 states, including Kuala Lumpur. We won 10 out of 11 parliamentary seats. So I believe we are ripe for some sort of a Malaysia spring through the electoral process.
Andrew, however, is not quite as positive.
There are some clearly politically owned publications, newspapers, TV stations that are still heavily consumed, regardless of without any appreciation for independence, neutrality. So Malaysians haven't learned what they want out of press freedom yet.
The mainstream news media certainly seemed eager to paint the Black 505 rallies in a bad light, and I couldn't help but to expect an outbreak of violence at some point during the day. In reality, it was more like a festival atmosphere than anything else. Various stalls had been set up selling food, drink and merchandise, and everyone seemed to be relaxed and calm.
Dan kami juga anak-anak muda bukan turun ke sini semata-mata untuk mencetus huru-hara, bukan untuk mencetus keganasan. Namun kami dengan cara kami menzahirkan tuntutan kami dengan cara ini, iaitu mahukan demokrasi subur di negara Malaysia. Itu saja.
Rosalind spoke good English and kindly agreed to help me interview people in Malay. I wanted to speak to one group of protesters in particular. They were a tribe of Orang Asli, Aboriginal Malaysians, here to support their chief who was speaking at the event. I managed to get him to agree to be interviewed by Rosalind, but he didn't seem to want to say too much on film.
Dalam tujuan saya lebih kurang orang cakap sedikit sebanyak lah. Yang mana saya tahu kira yang kami turun sini beramai-ramai kira suku kaum saja sebab masalahnya masa time undi SPR yang buat hal. Dia buat penipuan besar orang cakap.
Ketidaktelusan SPR. Mana demokrasi di negara kita tidak lagi subur seperti yang sebelumnya.
Yalah.
The rally continued peacefully and finished without incident. Although the protest was mainly about electoral fraud, the issue of race and religion seemed to be constantly bubbling underneath the surface. But it was a touchy subject, and not many people wanted to talk about it. I'd have to find someone who trusted me enough to speak openly.
You talk about the corruption and the money. The politicians use race and religion to entrench that position and to entrench their positions. So it is really all of it. Race and religion are unnecessarily played up to divide the people. It's simple as that.
Malaysia is a very ethnically diverse country. Just over half the population are Muslim Malays, almost a quarter are Chinese, and the remainder is divided by Indians, indigenous non-Muslims, and others. Despite this diversity, the country is very much controlled by Muslims. The monarchy is Islamic, and the ruling coalition is dominated by the Islamist political party UMNO.
After the elections, the reaction of the government is horrifying, because they're blaming the Chinese for losing. They're saying, and they become so racist in the mouthpiece of the government, one of the press, attacking the Chinese all the time. So it tells you two things. One is they're racist. Secondly, they're not prepared to look at themselves to see why they lost and why people didn't want to vote for them. And thirdly, they're isolating a single community, and the attacks are relentless.
It felt like a picture was being painted of a religious elite ruling over the country more like a dictatorship than a democracy. A trip to Malaysia's federal capital, Putrajaya, only reinforced this idea. It seemed custom built with the longevity of Muslim rule in mind. The Prime Minister's office looked like a Mughal dynasty palace more than anything else, and it even came equipped with its own personal mosque. But this was all superficial. I wanted to meet minority Malaysians in person to find out firsthand if racism was really a problem. I managed to get in touch with a young Orang Asli man called Maur Ajani. He agreed to take me round his old village to hopefully speak to some of his friends and family. The place was not what I was expecting. It looked more like an American suburb than an Aboriginal settlement. I soon found out why.
Before Bukit Lanyan become modern like this, there used to be a village full of green trees. Not like this, the concrete jungle you say. Now it's built by the developer company, MKLN. They give me this house for exchange our land.
The Orang Asli people traditionally lived off the land in Malaysia's huge fertile forests, but increasingly their ancient homeland is being swallowed up by expanding cities. Now, where Maur's old village used to be, the Malay-owned company MK Land have built a luxury urban development, forcing the Orang Asli to either leave or adapt to city living. Unfortunately, the villagers we spoke to were unwilling to discuss sensitive issues like race or politics. They said that they were scared of being arrested. However, I did eventually persuade Maur himself to sit down and speak with me.
UMNO dia memang parti racist. Pasal dia parti macam orang Melayu. Macam kalau ada bangsa lain memang dia dapat. Pasal dia berpentingan kroni UMNO BN. Payah juga kalau kerja kerajaan ni. Kena ada pasal kerajaan ni Islam kan. Kalau yang Islam tu susah naik pangkat lah, naik pangkat susah. Nak promote naik pangkat susah. Gaji pun second ni lah. Macam semua member tu dia kerja kerajaan tapi selalu macam dipandang rendah je lah. Pasal dia bukan Muslim.
These were some pretty serious allegations, and I felt like more than just anecdotal evidence was needed. I decided to seek the opinion of one of the country's leading experts on Orang Asli affairs at the National University of Malaysia.
They are not barred from integration. Whoever told you that is mistaken. Yeah? They are discriminated. Is that true? By due process of law, no.
So is it actually just pure discrimination that means that they don't get the jobs?
No.
So what
Any Orang Asli who is equally qualified will get any job. Yes. Chinese, Indians, Malays, they have this special place in their heart in regard to Orang Asli. And they will admire the Orang Asli for having come thus far, you know. So this is a kind of a perspective that they have. Orang Asli have been poor. They know that. Orang Asli have been in this country for a long time. They know that, you know. We must help them out. So at that level of individuals, you know, Orang Asli and Malays and so on, things are okay.
There was also the issue of land. I questioned Dato Hood about an amendment to Malaysian law, which, if passed, will result in the Orang Asli losing even more of their traditional homeland.
It has been a long drawn-out battle for Orang Asli to be getting land as Orang Asli. Because of the word Orang Asli, the great mistrust generated by the term Orang Asli, because the resources are held very competitively in this country. They fear it will be sold to undesirable people.
Racism is clearly a great cause of tension in Malaysia, and anger at this division of the people was another factor underlying the Black 505 rallies. For the protesters, the promotion of unity was just as important to them as anything else.
Today we come here, we want to show to government, our Malaysian, Chinese, India, also Malay, we are together. We are one Malaysia. We don't want racism.
2 days after the Black 505 protest, it was the state opening of Parliament, and a group of around 100 activists met on the main road towards the Parliament building. The police presence was far greater than at the park 2 days previously, the officers outnumbering the protesters 3-1. The atmosphere was also a lot more serious than before, and soon a human blockade began to form at the side of the road. Despite this, protesters were helping wave the traffic past, and it seemed like the huge police force would not be needed. Then, all of a sudden, something changed. "32 people were arrested following the skirmish, and many police and protesters were injured. Among the wounded, a familiar face, Roslan Ismail from Ambang 13, who had helped me interview people in Malay at the rally 2 days previously. His leg was badly broken during the fight. He was quickly bundled into a car and rushed off to hospital."
Country is in a state of transition. Demonstrations and and so on, hoping for the Arab Spring to spread to this country. I doubt it.
Why?
Well, do we have... the country is quite rich, yeah? And I don't think that all the money is in the hands of the rich. No.
If you looked at the birthday rallies, actually, it was a complete cross-section of Malaysians from all walks of life, all races, all religions. There was so much of unity, actually. It shows you that that's the way people want to be, if only the politicians would let them be that way.
My time in Malaysia was coming to a close, and I had only skimmed the surface of its complex political landscape. One thing was for certain: Malaysians are united by their incredible passion for their country and its democracy, and they're not giving up without a fight. However, the future remains uncertain. Barisan Nasional have secured at least another 4 years in power, and the Black 505 rallies achieved nothing more than a ruckus. Whilst the power elites remain firmly in control of Malaysia's money and the media, it seems it will take a lot more than the occasional public protest for there to be any guarantee that things will change.